Charles, thank you very much for calling the show. I appreciate it.
So, wow. I'm a truck driver out here on the West Coast. And, I agree with a lot with what you said about, self-sufficiency. But what I don't agree with you, Larry, is the fact that there's this massive police brutality in the black community. It is. And, this police, the narrative that the media is framing is that black people are violent, and that's why we're being targeted. And I feel like as a black man living in Oakland, I feel targeted. I've seen arrests where there's a difference in the arrest method. They make black people out here get on the ground, put their hands behind their back. A white person doesn't get that same treatment, Larry. So for you to allude to the fact that there's no police brutality, there's not a problem. There's a big problem, and people need to know this. You go on YouTube, Larry. There's instance after instance after instance of black people being targeted simply for the color of our skin, man. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it, Larry.
Charles, I have never said. Wait, Charles. Wait a second. Charles, let me respond. I have never said there's no police brutality. I've never said that. I saw the Rodney King tape. I never said there's no police brutality. The question is it a serious problem in this country? And I'm saying it's not a serious problem. The real problem is the amount of crime committed by a lot of young black men, which is one of the reasons why a lot of young black men are pulled over. That's a bigger problem than...
Larry, I just like to tell you that FBI statistics prove that white people commit far more crimes, even adjusted for their population, than blacks do. Even adjusted, there's massive white-on-white crime. Heroin epidemic is killing a lot of white people, man. It's like the media don't report that. They always report problems in the black community, and like they're trying to frame us in a narrative like we're violent, like we don't have nothing going on. It's not true, man.
Well, first of all, the media
is not our friend. The media is not our friend. That's all I got to say, man. And I'm really tired of being targeted. And once they target the Muslims, if they target Muslims, maybe they would have caught the terrorists. They're always pulling over a black person. Like we're the only criminals. That's what they need to do. And I'm tired of it, man. People need to realize this is a problem, man. It's a problem. I listen to your show, man. I agree with a lot that you're saying, but until white America wakes up to these facts and starts working on this problem, I just want the bad police officers held accountable. That's it.
Well, Charles, you and I don't disagree. I want the bad police officers held accountable. But you made a number of assertions that are simply flat out wrong. You said whites commit more crime than blacks do. No, they don't. And I'll get into all of this when I come back. Charles, thank you very much for the call. I appreciate it. 888-971-SAGE. Do not leave town. Now, Charles has said that he believes that the police are, in fact, targeting black people and that there's a great deal of police brutality. And Charles, thank you for holding on. I appreciate it. Can I now respond?
Well, I just wanted to say, currently there's no method of accountability for bad police officers.
Well, yes, there is.
It's this code of silence. It's this code of silence. So, there's good and bad in everything.
Right.
You have good police officers, bad police. The bad police officers, when they're doing something like planting evidence, doing drugs, out here in Oakland, there was even messing around prostitutes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
When they do these bad things, there's no method of accountability, Larry. So they're getting away with planning, doing bad things, and the good cops won't say anything because there's this thin code of silence.
Okay, Charles.
And so now we need and if bad cops could do this to one group of people, they could do it to anybody, including white Americans. White people need to realize this, that this oppression could come around to them and bite them. You know, when you allow oppression on one group of people, you allow it on all groups of people.
Okay, all right.
So I just want to say that, Larry, and you know, we need to have this conversation about the bad cops, because that's who's doing it. And you know, Larry, to say there's no problem, that's just being delusional. It really is, Larry.
Okay, did I ever say there was no problem? No, I didn't. I said it wasn't a major problem. It's not a major problem. Do you know any cops, Charles?
My uncle was a lieutenant with the Richmond Police Department out here in the Bay Area. He's retired now.
Mm-hmm.
He made during his tenure as a lieutenant, he made major busts with drug dealers. He's very well known.
Okay. The reason I ask that is because the cops I know, and I know a lot of them, they hate bad cops probably more than you do, because they know that a small number of bad cops can ruin the reputations of the majority of the good cops. So when you say that there's no accountability, all I know is that cops I know hate bad cops that plant evidence and do the kinds of things that undermine the reputation of the other good cops. But let's just talk about homicide. All right. Last year, or 2015, there were roughly 15,000 homicides. What percentage of them do you think were black victims, Charles?
I'm not privy to those statistics.
Okay, the answer is half of them.
I'm sure it was overrepresented just as blacks.
That's right.
Are overrepresented in the criminal justice system, being mass incarcerated.
Well, Charles, the reason Charles, let me speak, please. The reason I mention murder is because what does it have to do with white people? What does it have to do with oppression? What does it have to do with police brutality? That's why I talked about murder. 15,000 homicides in 2015. Roughly half of them were black victims, and almost all of these black victims were killed by another black person. If you are a young black person versus a young white person, the young black person is 7 times more likely to be killed, usually by another young person, than a white person is. So it is simply not true for you to say that white people are committing more crime than black people. It is not true. White people are underrepresented in violent crime, and black people are overrepresented in violent crime, and almost always the victim of the violent crime is another black person. Now, in 2015, there were 250 black people killed by the police. 250. And of those 250, almost all of them had a weapon or were attacking the cop or were resisting arrest. 400 Americans were injured by lightning. So you are more likely to be injured by lightning than to be killed by a police officer. Yet that very same year, 6,000 blacks were killed by other black people. Now, a third of young black men have criminal records, as opposed to roughly 10% of young whites. And one more time, the reason is because of the lack of fathers in the home. A phenomenon that is far, far more prevalent within the black community than in the white community. 73% of black kids born outside of wedlock, Obama said, when you were raised without a father, you're 5 times more likely to be poor, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, 20 times more likely to end up in jail. That is far and away a bigger problem than the police brutality that you speak of, Charles. Far and away bigger problem. Now, you talk about officers targeting black people. You remember what they discovered in Ferguson? That the Ferguson PD was institutionally racist. That's what the Obama DOJ said. Why? Because Ferguson is 67% black, but 85% of the traffic stops were black people, an 18-point gap, ergo racism within the Ferguson Police Department. Except when you go across the country to New York. Roughly 25% of the population in New York is black. 55% of those stopped by the police in traffic stops are black. A 35-point gap. Yet the majority of the officers in New York are people of color. Now, if the majority are people of color, but the gap is 30 points, and in Ferguson the majority is or white people, and the gap is 18 points, why isn't the New York City Police Department considered to be even more institutionally racist than Ferguson? And the answer is you can't do it without talking about rates of offending. And black drivers are more likely than white drivers to drive without a license, to drive without tags, to drive without insurance, to drive without a seatbelt, to drive without a safety seat in the back, and so forth. Obama's DOJ came up with that. Not me. I'm Larry Elder. Don't leave town.